Let's dive into 5 of the things I think you need to consider when wanting to become a breeder. What's up, everybody? I'm Jeremy, and you are watching Morphs. This week's video, folks, we are going to be diving in to what I think you, yes, you, need to be thinking about when wanting to become a breeder. So stick around. We're just gonna touch base on 5 of the things that I think are very important that I think do get overlooked. Before we go ahead and dive into this week's video, though, folks, do me a favor: hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, drop me a comment down below. What do you guys think? Do you want to become a breeder? And if you are a breeder, is there something that you think I should put in this list instead of what I did pick to put in? So let's go ahead and dive on into this, guys. Make sure you check out Nathan at Infinite Possible Pythons. He is your guy to go to if you want to get into the Bang project. On top of it, he's working a bunch of awesome ball python projects: Kahua geckos, Leachianus geckos, crested geckos, some scaleless corn snakes, and he is your one-stop shop for all your branding needs. So check him out. Check out Chris Shelley over at S Reptilia if you need a high-end ball python, blood python, locality boa, or colubrid. He's also Pennsylvania's distributor of Coco to Go and the Chipper, and he can also hook you up with some rats. So make sure you guys check out Chris over at S Reptilia. All right, number 1, species. What species do you want to work with? Right now, I've got Lagatha, one of our female jungle carpet pythons, out. And I figured this is a perfect example of things to think about species-wise. Because depending what species you do get, they're going to take up a lot more room than others. Carpet pythons definitely take up a lot more room than, say, like ball pythons, hognoses, colubrids. So that's something you do need to take into account. How big is the species that you want to breed and work with going to get? Because they're going to take up a lot more space. As you can see behind me here, those are the carpet enclosures. They're 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. You can house a lot of ball pythons or other species in the amount of space that I can house 3 carpet pythons in total. So that's one thing you need to think about, because if you want to work, certain species, they're going to take up a lot more space, and we'll dive into that a little bit more as well. But definitely, think about the species that you do want to work with, because if you're limited on space, you are going to have to maybe make some sacrifices. The amount of space. Now, the amount of space, like I was kind of hinting at with the species thing, the amount of space determines an awful lot. One, it determines how many of the species that you want to keep or work with, how many you can have. Like I've got the carpets here, 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot enclosures. Those are big enclosures. And you can house an awful lot of ball pythons. You can house a lot of hognose. You can house a lot of colubrids in a space like that. I've got 3 carpets in that amount of space. That's a lot of space, folks. Those enclosures take up a lot of room. And so that's all things you need to think about if you're working in a tighter area. How much room do you really have to work with? Because you've got to consider, you're going to have holdbacks. You're going to be growing things up, so you're going to have hatchling space. You're going to have grow-ups. And then you're going to have the adult stuff. So you've got to think about, where are you putting all these stages of life for these animals that you're raising and working with? The other thing is, you're also going to need a space for your incubator if you're working with a species that lays eggs. So space is a big thing you've got to think about. I will say this: when I built this room originally, I thought I had more than enough space. It's a 12 by 14 room. I've got it lined with carpet enclosures. As you can see, the 1065 ARS rack there for the grow-ups and hatchlings. I've got a mini 130 rack for the hatchlings, and I've got a 5540 rack and a 5020 rack for adults and grow-ups. And plus the incubator. That fills this whole entire room, folks. I'm literally I'm now doing a room expansion, which is going to double the size of this room, just mainly because I want to be able to have more space to do my carpets. Now, I've got more than enough room to do the ball pythons. The carpets are the big thing for the room expansion. Like I was saying, these guys take up a lot more space. And that is something, like, again, with the species. How much room is it going to require to work and house and properly keep those or that species? Space folks, think about it. Whatever you think you're going to need, my suggestion, probably double it. Head on over to Triforce Morphs if you're looking for that missing piece in your ball python breeding project. While you're there, add a little bit of lace or citron to the mix, folks. John and Christine can also hook you up with the crested gecko, so don't forget that. Turn up the heat with Triforce Morphs. If you want to use the best reptile record keeping and tracking software on the market today, scan the QR code or click our partnership link in the description down below for a free 30-day trial of Husbandry Pro. I promise you, you will not regret it. Now, the next thing you need to think about, depending what species you're working with, genetics are a big, big factor. And you need to think about what project directions you want to go. Now, this is one of our TSK Exantic Leopard Het Clown females we have growing up. She actually might breed for us this year. We'll have to wait and see. She's kind of on that teeter side. She might be ready for this year. She might be ready for next year. We'll have to see. But project direction, like for the ball pythons, hog noses, genetics are a big thing, folks. Even like some of your lizards, genetics, you could get wrapped up in genetics. Like we could probably do a whole video on just planning genetic projects. But you've got to think about what direction you want to go with your genetics, because again, that projects will take up space. You could use up at least one whole rack on a project, and that's doing the project properly. It goes back to the space thing. Projects take space. It determines how many animals you're holding back, how many animals you're bringing in to improve those projects, to keep, bloodlines fresh, all that stuff. Your project direction is a big thing because there's so many genetics out there. So many just recessives, incomplete dominant stuff. There's so much of it out there. Like just the ball pythons, there's probably like 200 plus genetics out there right now, folks, to be working with. You can't work with them all. So you've got to pick and choose. So you've got to keep that in mind. What projects do you want to work with? My suggestion, base everything around your recessive stuff, especially for the ball python market. Base it around recessives because recessives are they're the future. Let's admit it. Base it around recessives. If certain genetics don't work for your main recessive projects, don't get into those genetics, because you need to be able to put everything into those recessives. Also, make sure you have recessives that complement each other so you can at some point combine them all together. Like my Exantic stuff. Exantic Clown is one of the goals. Exantic Clown Pieds. Exantic Pieds. Everything's going to be Exantic. It's going to have Clown. Exantic DGs. We're working on those this year as well. So, make sure you guys pick projects that do work well together. Exantic, Pieds, Clown, Desert Ghost, it all works and meshes so good together. So good together, folks. So keep that in mind when you're planning your projects and what direction you want to take everything. Make sure at some point you can combine all that stuff together and have it work out flawlessly, because that will make your direction and how much space you need so much easier to work with and figure out. Now, the next thing you need to be thinking about is how are you going to be feeding this collection? Because that's probably one of the things most breeders, and sometimes I will admit, I've almost gotten caught up into this whole predicament, is how are you going to feed your collection? Are you going to breed rats, or are you going to buy rats? Are you going to buy frozen thawed rats? A lot of breeders do breed their own rats. If you've got the space and the time to do so, freaking awesome, do it. Because you not only will save money because you're feeding your own stuff, you will also be able to control the quality of those rodents. And on top of it, if you have extras, you can sell the extra rodents off, and it's another income stream to help pay for the food and all that stuff to raise the rats up. So it ends up coming full circle. Now, if you're like me, you might not have the time, or you don't have the space, or you just don't feel like dealing with the rats. That's basically the boat I'm in. Don't have the time. I do have the space. Just don't have the time. Don't feel like dealing with it. So you've got to buy rats. Now, you've got to think about how are you going to pay for those rats, first of all, because if you have a big collection, it's going to take a lot of money to feed that collection, folks. You've got to constantly be thinking, how are you going to support feeding all of those snakes? A lot of people I've seen it happen so many times. They grow like crazy. They buy snakes, and then it hits. they realize, because they get caught up into this whole thing, well, if I get these animals, I can breed these, and then, I'll be making babies that are this much, value wise, blah, 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 blah. They don't think about those animals that they've purchased might take 2 to 3 years till they're ready to breed. They might not even breed for you. Even if you get something that's a proven breeder, it might take the season off because of the change with where, the environment change. You don't know, you can't control what these animals are going to do. You're not guaranteed. You're not guaranteed that they will breed, produce. You're not even guaranteed, eggs that are good. You might get eggs that go bad during incubation. You might get slugs right off the bat. There's a lot of unknowns. You cannot bank on the snakes are going to pay for it all. So you've got to make sure that your collection size that you're growing to, or that as you're expanding, are you able to sustain that collection size with feeding them? That's the big thing, folks. You got to be able to sustain and feed your animals properly, especially if you're trying to breed. You've got to feed them a certain way, so that way they're getting the nutrients when they need those nutrients to be able to produce those healthy clutches, get that weight back on after laying a clutch of eggs. There's a lot of things that go into it. Feeding is probably one of the biggest things I see people overlooking and just not taking into consideration, because it's such a simple thing, and we all know, well, yeah, you gotta feed your animals. Until that food bill hits, when you get, say, I don't know, a huge order, a bulk order, and say you're dropping $500-600 in one shot, and you're like, ouch, that hurt. And I'll tell you what, sometimes when I do my bulk orders, I get that total, it's just like, ooh, like it hurts the heart almost. At the end of the day, though, you've got to just remember, you've got to be able to sustain and feed your collection. You cannot bank on your collection paying for the rats or paying for however you're planning on feeding them. You've got to be able to make sure that you yourself can pay to feed those animals, because, like I said, you might have a bad season. You might get a lot of slugs. A lot of your girls might not go. Like, I'm right now worried, am I going to get any carpet clutches? Because I love working with the carpets. They're a big hit here. I don't know if I'm going to have any carpets this year, just because I'm not getting any locks yet. It's one of those things. You cannot make these, you cannot bully Mother Nature. Mother Nature will do what Mother Nature wants to do. And, you just got to make sure you are ready to foot that bill, because let's face it, rats are not cheap. You're probably talking, I think it's probably like $2.80, almost $3 maybe for a medium rat, for like some of the adult carpets, the adult ball pythons. You've got to, it's going to add up. So keep your collection sustainable to where you can make sure that you're able to feed it properly. Before we put this lovely lady away, this is our gelatin carpet python. I love these guys. This is a female, and at some point we will be producing these lovely things. Camera's actually browning her out some, which is a shame, because she is just like black and gray with some shades of blue in her belly. She's just absolutely gorgeous. Love the gelatin stuff. So let's go ahead and dive into the last topic. Stop wasting time trying to prove out animals or taking chances on possible hets or genes you don't know that are there. Head on over to Charlie at Gray Rider Reptiles and ShedTesting.com for all of your shed testing needs. He's fast, accurate, and adding new tests on a regular basis. So head on over to ShedTesting.com and check him out. Make sure to use the code CARPET15 for 15% off of your shed test order. Use nothing but the best at ShedTesting.com. Last but not least, size of the collection you want to have, the growth of that collection, and where do you want to be as a breeder? Those are all things you got to keep in mind with all of this. It kind of comes full circle with this one last topic here. So where do you want to be at when it's all said and done? Do you just want to be somebody that produces 1 or 2 clutches? Fantastic. Do you want to be a hobbyist breeder that does a little bit more than 1 or 2 clutches? Fantastic. Do you want to try to be the next Justin Kabilka or Ozzy or any of those guys, the next Bob Vu? Fantastic. That's it. Each aspect of that takes up more and more space, more and more time. So you've got to make sure you've got the capability of the time that's going to require, the space it's going to take to, do all of that, because that's going to be a lot of space if you want to be the next Justin or Bob Vu. Now here, we've got our beautiful vanilla Batman female that we held back from this year. This girl is absolutely gorgeous. This was a goal animal to hit this year, so I was happy it was a female because she's going to stay here. But you've got to keep in, like, with your size, you got to keep in the back of your head a few things with the size of your collection. One, you've got to be bringing in animals from other people. New blood, you got to keep freshening up the gene pool, you know, the bloodline, stuff like that. You've got to keep things fresh. The other thing is, as you're bringing in new animals, you're going to need, one, a quarantine area. Two, you are going to need to have room for those animals to come into the collection. You're also going to need to have the room and amount of space required for the holdbacks and the babies that are going to be produced from all your breedings. That adds up to a lot of space, folks. And it's stuff that you might not think of off the bat. My rack right now, just for baby ball pythons, is a mini 130 rack. And that fills up quick, folks. Let me tell you. My holdback rack is a ARS 1065 rack. That fills up real quick, especially when the carpet pythons hatch. The baby jungles, they go in the 1065 rack, and that fills up real quick because there you're getting a lot more eggs, goes back to the species, all that stuff. A lot of this all comes full circle right here, like I said. Growth and size. Make sure you are keeping the proper amount of animals. One that you can feed, you've got room for them, give them proper care. But also you've got to keep in mind, folks, and this is something I heard, I forget who had said it, but I heard it and it's so true. Don't think about how many snakes you can handle on your best days. Think about how many snakes you can handle taking care of on your worst day. That day where you can't get out of bed, you just feel like complete crap, you feel like a truck ran you over. How many snakes are you able to take care of on those days? Because let's face it, these guys don't care if you're sick. It doesn't matter to them if you're sick or not, because they need you. They are not able to take care of themselves without you. It's your responsibility to be able to give them the proper care that they need. So keep that in mind. It's not how many snakes you can keep on your best day. It's how many snakes you can keep and take care of on your worst days, guys. The other thing is, too, is if you don't have the amount of space for the babies you're producing, the amount of holdbacks you're producing, you need to scale back on your projects. How many animals you're keeping, how many animals you're breeding. You know, you might have to focus your collection a little bit more. A lot of people have to do that. They start buying this and they start buying that. And at the end of the day, they're like, wow, I've got all these snakes. Not everything works in certain projects. And you've got to, narrow that in. You've got to focus a little bit. So those are some things you've really got to think about. How big do you want to be? How many animals are you comfortably able to take care of? How many can you comfortably house? Growth and size, that's the biggest thing here. I know I underestimated the growth and size for my collection. Now, I do have the ability to expand, which is what we're doing. Like I've said before and in the other videos, we're doubling the size of the snake room, so it's literally going to be half my basement. But, and that's just because I thought this room was going to be big enough, and I'm rapidly realizing it's not. But like I said, luckily, I'm fortunate enough. I don't have to downsize. I don't have to focus. I have the capability to go ahead and expand a little bit. So, but at least I knew and saw it before it became a problem that I needed to expand. Growth and size, folks, keep that in mind. Feeding your collection, project direction, species that you want to work with, and the amount of space you're going to need for everything. Those are all things that you need to think about when wanting to become a breeder. So that's going to be it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Hopefully this topic did help some of you out, because I think there's a lot of people that do want to get into this amazing aspect of the hobby with breeding, making these beautiful animals. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, this is just a gorgeous, gorgeous girl. But I do think that, hopefully this video will help a lot of you. I know we get a lot of questions about stuff like this, so here you guys go. If there's something else you think I missed or that you would like to see a video on, drop it in the comments down below. Sometimes I do have a hard time coming up with ideas. I apologize for any of the rumbling you hear. That's Hadley running around upstairs. But before we go ahead and end this, though, folks, do me a favor. First of all, go and check out the channel members. Check out the channel membership. Link for that is in the description down below. Check out the channel sponsors as well. Greatly appreciate all their love and support. And then the other thing is, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Drop me a comment down below, please. What did you guys think of this video? What do you want to see coming up next for future content? Let me know, because like I said, I can't think of it all, guys. Can't think of it all. But that's going to be it, folks. So I will catch you next time. Later.